What if the reason you feel alone in this universe is because something decided you needed to be? And what if the greatest act of protection this universe ever extended to you felt from the inside, exactly like abandonment? We spend our lives looking up at the sky, asking, why is nobody answering? We build radio telescopes the size of valleys. We send golden records into the dark. We whisper into the void like children knocking on a door they're not sure leads anywhere. And the universe stays silent. So we draw the only conclusion that feels logical from inside the cage. We must be alone. But here's the thing about cages. The creature inside rarely sees the bars. There is a body of channeled material, ancient in its structure, radical in its implications, called the Law of One, transmitted in the early 1980s through a research team in Louisville, Kentucky. Not a religion, not a fantasy novel, a cosmology. And within that cosmology, there is a concept so counterintuitive, it rewires how you understand your entire existence on this planet. It's called the quarantine. Not a metaphor, not a spiritual allegory, a literal vibrational boundary maintained by what the material calls the Confederation of Planets, a collective of evolved civilizations operating from higher densities of consciousness, positioned around Earth with one singular purpose: to preserve your freedom to choose. Let that sit for a moment. The silence you've been interpreting as cosmic indifference. It might be the most precise act of love this universe knows how to perform. Imagine you're raising a child, and you know because you've lived longer, seen more, carry the scars of choices made, you know the answer to the question they're wrestling with. You can see with perfect clarity which road leads to growth and which leads to collapse. But you also know something deeper. If you tell them the answer, you don't give them wisdom. You give them your wisdom. And those are not the same thing. So you do the hardest thing a conscious being can do. You stay quiet. You hover at the edge of their awareness, close enough to intervene if survival is genuinely threatened, far enough to let them stumble, fall, question, doubt, and through that very friction, become. The Confederation, according to the Law of One, operates by something called the Law of Confusion, also known as the Law of Free Will. Their prime directive, and yes, this is where science fiction starts to look less like imagination and more like suppressed memory, their prime directive is non-interference with the spiritual evolution of a third density planet. Our planet, third density, the density of choice, the density where consciousness, incarnated in biological form, gets to answer the fundamental question of existence. Will I evolve towards service to others or service to self? That's it. That's the whole exam. And the quarantine exists to make sure nobody cheats by showing you the answer. But here's where it gets stranger and more personal. The quarantine is not perfect. There are what the Law of One calls windows, moments where the veil thins, where contact becomes possible. Not because the Confederation decided to show up on a Tuesday, but because you called. The windows open in response to human consciousness, to collective spiritual yearning, to the frequency of genuine seeking. This means every genuine UFO contact, every synchronistic encounter that felt like a message from beyond, every moment where the universe seemed to lean in, those weren't accidents. They were responses, precise, calibrated responses to the specific vibration you were emitting. The universe doesn't broadcast, it receives. And then it mirrors back at the exact amplitude you transmitted. You think you're waiting for contact. Contact is waiting for you. Now pause, because this is where most people make the turn toward comfort. They hear this and they think, beautiful. So I just need to raise my vibration and the ships will come. And that's exactly the spiritual laziness this message is trying to interrupt. Because the quarantine isn't just about extraterrestrial contact. It's a mirror held up to the deepest question you have been avoiding. What are you actually doing with your freedom? The Confederation isn't keeping you in a cage. They're keeping the cage clean, protecting the integrity of the space in which your choices actually mean something. But here's the disruption. If your choices didn't matter cosmically, there would be no quarantine. There would be no need to protect the environment in which you make them. The existence of the quarantine is itself proof of your significance. You are not a speck of biology on a pale blue dot, generating electrical noise in a universe that doesn't notice. You are a point of creative consciousness, incarnated deliberately into density, into forgetting, into the extraordinary limitation of being human, because this is where the real work happens. Not in the higher densities, not in some post-death clarity where all illusions dissolve. Here, in the confusion, in the not knowing, in the moment where you could choose fear, and you chose something else instead. The law of one calls Earth a third density schoolroom, but a schoolroom implies a teacher, and the teacher, it turns out, has been maintaining silence not out of absence, but out of respect. Here is the reframe that changes everything. You have been living as though the spiritual universe owes you a sign, a confirmation, a burning bush, a visitation. You have been waiting to be chosen, but consciousness doesn't work that way. The quarantine teaches us that the universe is not a vending machine you insert prayers into and wait for delivery. It is a system of resonance, a mirror, an echo chamber of infinite precision. The Confederation holds the perimeter not because humanity is dangerous, though some of its rulers have been. Not because you're too primitive, though some of your technology has outpaced your wisdom. They hold the perimeter because you are in the middle of the most important test consciousness takes, and the test can only be passed from the inside. Every teacher who has ever understood real learning knows the moment you give the student the answer, the education ends. So the question you need to sit with, not tomorrow, not when you feel spiritually ready, but now, is this. If this is the exam, and the exam is about the direction of your love, toward others or only toward yourself, what have your last 7 days been teaching the universe about who you are? The quarantine is not out there in space, not in some vibrational grid above the stratosphere. The quarantine is the exact structure of your inner life. You have your own confederation, the part of you that knows, that sees clearly, that could intervene and override every unconscious pattern. And you have your own law of confusion, the part that stands back and says, let them choose, let the choice be real. The cosmic drama playing out around Earth is playing out inside you right now, which means the windows, those moments where something higher breaks through, aren't waiting for a specific date on a Mayan calendar. They open when you open. Genuine curiosity is a window. Real compassion is a window. The moment you stop performing your spiritual life and start living it, that's a window. And something, somewhere in the structure of this universe, leans in. So what does this actually look like in a life? First, stop waiting for external confirmation of your spiritual path. The quarantine means the validation system is internal. Check your resonance, not your notifications. Second, treat your choices as cosmically significant, because if this cosmology is even partially true, they are. Not in an ego-inflating way, in a sober, grounded, this actually matters way. Third, ask yourself once a day the core law of one question. Was my energy today oriented towards service to others or service to self? No judgment, just honest inventory. The awareness alone begins to shift the frequency. Fourth, when something breaks through, a synchronicity, an inexplicable sense of being guided, a dream that cracks you open, don't dismiss it, don't over-explain it. Learn to receive the transmission without collapsing it into either fear or fantasy. The windows open in proportion to your capacity to stay present in them. I want to leave you with this. Somewhere in the architecture of this universe, there are civilizations who have watched this planet for longer than your civilization has had language. And they have chosen over and over to respect your freedom above their desire to help. That is a love so precise, so mature, so evolved, it barely resembles what we call love at all. And yet, here you are, still choosing, still confused, still capable of becoming something extraordinary. The quarantine was never a punishment. It was always a promise that what you choose here in the dark, without certainty, without proof, without the comfort of cosmic confirmation, means something. If this conversation opens something in you, a question, a crack in the usual story, come back. There's more. We're only just beginning to look at what we've been trained not to see.